Alright, today I'm going to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder and how it's not being treated properly by the U.S. military and the government. I'm going to show you a video that's going to give you an idea. This video was taken by a friend of mine who was in the same unit, and it shows you an idea of how fast a traumatic experience can happen. Play. Video. Okay, well, anyways, there was a video that showed there was an explosion that showed how fast you can be driving along and the road just explodes in front of you. I dealt with post-traumatic stress disorder myself for over a year after my first deployment. My truck that I was riding in was hit with the anti-tank grenade, and it blew off the back end of our truck, and most of us suffered severe concussions. I had ringing in my ears for weeks afterwards. And after this happened, nobody really talked to us about what can happen when you experience a traumatic event. They never told us that we might have any side effects from this. They just put us right back to work. And a few months later, I started having nightmares. I was having a hard time sleeping. I was averaging about 3 hours of sleep at night at this point, and not really knowing what was going on. But I just attributed it to me being in Iraq, and once I got home, everything would be better. At the end of the deployment, I went home with my family, and nothing changed. I was still having nightmares, still averaging 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night, very edgy, jumpy, and I was grumpy. I was snapping at everyone for no reason, and was getting scared because I didn't know what was going on. So I went to my supervisor at the time, told him what was going on, and he pretty much laughed at me, told me to suck it up, and to not really tell anybody else because they would look at me and think I was weak for what I was experiencing. So I pushed it aside and tried to deal with it, and it just kept getting worse. And I was severing relationships with my family because of the way I was acting. So I went to a doctor, and the doctor prescribed me a high dose of sleeping pills. It kept me groggy and pretty much out of my mind for a month or so before I quit doing that. And finally went and told my dad what was going on. My dad's a preacher. He's dealt a lot of traumatic events with people before. And he did a lot of research for me and told me that the symptoms I was having matched most of the symptoms of somebody with post-traumatic stress disorder. Because of that, I was able to go to the mental health professional on base and tell them, hey, this is what I have. I'm pretty sure these are my symptoms. There's something you can do. And when I did that, they were able to get me into counseling and kind of bring me out of what I was dealing with. And it did help once I was able to get the help I needed. But it's not just me that had this problem or that's dealing with PTSD. According to the Veteran Affairs website, in the past 6 years, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, over 300,000 veterans have reported dealing with symptoms of PTSD. A lot of these veterans are coming home and they're going through the same thing I went through. They're asking for help, they're seeking help, and they're being ridiculed, made fun of, and misdiagnosed. And actually, an article by Jim Turpin out of Fort Hood, Texas, talks about soldiers coming back from deployment last year were actually disciplined for seeking help. They were getting in trouble for asking to see somebody. And then the ones that actually got to go to see mental health professionals or doctors were being misdiagnosed, and they kicked out of the military because they were being misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And because of this, they lost all their VA benefits, they lost all their health care and everything. So they're overseas for a year just to come home and get kicked out of the military with no benefits because the doctors and the mental health professionals weren't being trained on this disorder. And it's not just the military that's affecting though. Last year, an article by Michelle Rosenthal talks about approximately 31 million people in the United States were diagnosed with PTSD from experiencing some sort of traumatic event. Now, out of the 31 million, women were twice as likely as men to have PTSD. And it's not known why, but it is known that with women, sexual or domestic abuse was the highest cause for them experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. Then in men that have PTSD, it's more likely to cause violent or abusive behaviors, and it tends to take longer for it to surface and for it to show. And the government, and especially the military, from what I've seen, is not being addressed. We weren't the training that we were supposed to get before and after deployments was pushed aside because they view it as, you know, you're weak if you complain of any of these problems. And the government's just, that you don't see any advertisements or anything about this out there. So what needs to happen is the government needs to get involved and really put a widespread advertising campaign out across the United States, talking about the symptoms, and then if you have these symptoms, where to go locally to get help for these symptoms. Because a lot of people have symptoms, they don't know what's going on. The government and the military needs to enforce the training before, during, and after deployments, because it's not being enforced right now. It's just being shoved under the carpet. And then the doctors and mental health professionals need to go through some really thorough training for this disorder, because this disorder is one of the most misdiagnosed anxiety disorders in the United States. If this is not treated properly, then crimes, abuse, and suicide rates are going to continue to rise with people with PTSD. But if the government will step in and if people will take action, then these statistics will start to decrease, and the people that have these symptoms can seek help. They can begin the healing process. They can regain emotional and mental stability if they get the proper help. So what I'm doing is, my brother-in-law is a website designer, and we've actually begun working on a website that is going to have all the information that I've been researching and links to the other websites that I've been researching, talking about how this is not being addressed and the people that are having problems with this. It's going to have my experiences, and along with a lot of my friends who experience the same problems. And we're going to start reaching out and sending this out to people and asking them to contact their local government and to let them know that this is a problem that's becoming a major problem in the United States and in the military, and that they need to step up and do something about it. We're also creating a Facebook page that's going to have the same information that everybody can send out to all their families and friends. Hopefully just keep branching out this page and doing the same thing, asking to contact the government and let them know that something needs to be done. PTSD is causing untold amounts of damage in veterans and their families. But if this is treated, then people can deal with this disorder. I came out of it. A lot of my friends have come out of this disorder and not had any problems afterwards. It's a deadly disorder, but it can be treated. And if everyone will step up and let their friends know what's going on, and when I get this website up at the end, hopefully by the end of the next week, I'll get everybody links to it and try to send it out to people you know and just inform them what's going on so that people that are dealing with these symptoms can get help. Thank you.